I'm here with Devin Thorpe, author of Your Mark on the World, and I am very excited to interview you, Devin. For everyone that doesn't know Devin, he, about 2.5 years ago, was let go from his incredible job as CFO at MonaVie, which is a multinational food and beverage company. What he described as the best job he'd ever had. Ended up spending a year in China writing that book, Your Mark on the World. And since then, he is now recently published his 4th book, Crowdfunding for Social Good. He has embarked on an amazing career championing social good, and I'm excited to share with you his story and also learn for myself how that all came to be. So welcome, Devin.
Emily, it's an honor to be with you. It's fun to be on this side of the table. I do a lot of interviews and spend a lot of time talking to people, and it's a little intimidating to be sitting on this side of the table. So be gentle, okay?
Going back to that day that you were let go from your job, what were you thinking that day, and what went through your mind?
Well, you know, it was an interesting day for me. I really kind of took it in stride. I decided that I would just not let it bother me, and so I moved very quickly to leave on good terms with all of my friends at MonaVie. I really felt good about it. I left and then kind of started the next phase of my life, and the rest is history. So no rancor, and even at the time did not feel any real antipathy or anger toward anyone then.
Was there any period after that where you were really lost in what you were going to do, or what point did you commit to this new career that you pursued?
Well, the career has evolved, you know, and it continues to evolve. But I knew immediately that I would not be seeking another job like the one I'd had, at least immediately. So I sat down with my wife and we began to talk about what is it that we want to do. She was retiring from her 25-year career as a school teacher. I was suddenly a free agent, so to speak, and so we said, what do we want to do? And we began to look for things that would give us an opportunity to give back in some way, and that would give us an opportunity to do something interesting. So we were looking at international opportunities, and what came up that we settled on was the opportunity to go teach in China.
Wonderful. So getting back to Your Mark on the World, at what point did you decide to set out to write that book?
I'd been in China for one whole semester before I started that project, but I'd written a book before and about financial planning, and decided that I wanted to combine financial planning with kind of a social do-gooder theme, and thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll find stories of social do-gooders and then combine that with the financial advice so that people can be inspired by the do-gooders and get the tools they need to organize their financial life so that they can actually have an opportunity to have an impact and make a difference in the world.
What does your life look like on a day-to-day basis now, and how is that different from when you were working as a CFO or even prior to that? What's different now?
Everything is different. And in almost every way, it's better. Let's be very clear. As the chief financial officer of a global company, I was very fortunate to make a lot of money. That is no longer a way to describe my life. It may be someday, but it's not now. But I work from home. I have a wonderful wife whom I love tremendously, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to spend a little extra time with her. I don't usually end up having lunch with her. I still have a very traditional schedule. I get up in the morning and go to work down the hall, and tend to work all day, and then I come home at night. But it's nice not to have a commute. I get to have a nice early dinner with my wife almost every night. I love that. I get to see her most days a little bit during the day. That's wonderful. And so that helps to manage kind of that personal work-life balance in a way that is just absolutely wonderful. What I do every day is vastly different. I spend my time, most of my time is spent writing or doing interviews like this for Forbes or for Crowdfunding or Crowdcast or for my own blog at Your Mark on the World. I'm excited about doing things like today. I went and I got to train an organization called Women for Decency on crowdfunding, which is one of my very favorite things to do in the whole world, is to help organizations be empowered to do more. I'm very excited about their cause, but I'm excited about every opportunity I have to help every organization I come into contact with. And so these days I do a lot of training around crowdfunding, mostly for social causes. And that really gets me excited, because the money for a nonprofit organization is so critical, and helping them to accomplish their goals and objectives really is satisfying. So there is a deep satisfaction that comes from my work. I love the balance that and the things that I get to do. It's just, life couldn't be much better for me. I feel extraordinarily fortunate.
Is there any part of you that looks back, comparing your life now to your life before, and wishes you had exited the corporate world sooner?
Well, I don't wish I had exited sooner. I wish I had been more engaged in nonprofit service before I left, and I was. I was engaged. I was involved in my church, involved in community organizations. But looking back, I wish I had been even more engaged, that there were more opportunities to be involved in and around my job that would have allowed me to have an even more fulfilling career. So I regret the good I didn't do during my career more than I regret staying in it so long. I really think that most people can and should have a career that is fulfilling in whatever measure, allowing them to do whatever thing that is, whether it's playing baseball or being a plumber. I mean, it just doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you do in life, do it well, but make time for doing good alongside. There are so many different ways to be involved in the community, so many different ways to give back, both in terms of time and money, that I think everyone has that opportunity, and everyone should take that opportunity to try conscientiously to make a difference in the world. And I think that will add fulfillment to everyone's life, and just benefit the world tremendously as we all engage more in doing good.
A topic that has been really interesting to me is that as I meet people like you who have drastically changed their lives and are living just incredibly fulfilling careers that really merge and intersect with their passions and values, it seems like there's almost always a disruptive change that occurs that allows us to have that aha moment. And do you think if you hadn't been laid off from MonaVie, would you still be there? What would your life look like now?
Boy, I hate to say on the one hand that I would certainly have left had I not been let go, but eventually I think I would have. I simply don't have an especially high need for income, emotionally or otherwise. My wife and I have enough. We get by. We don't need a lot. We live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Salt Lake, drive one car. So I didn't need or especially even want the money that we were earning. I loved the job and the opportunity to travel around the world and have an influence and make a difference in the organization. I think I probably would have left and probably would have ended up somewhere similar. But you never know. You never know. That it's difficult on any given day to walk away from a really high salary and a job you love. No matter what you think might be on the other side, it's difficult to walk away. So who knows? So I think there's a lot of truth to your observation that those changes that are forced upon us catalyze actions that turn out to be great benefits and blessings in our lives.
I love that the theme of financial preparation really lies at the heart of this. It sounds like your own change was born out of that capability. For me and my husband, we discovered Dave Ramsey long ago, and that was what allowed us to be able to follow our dreams when those catalytic disruptions occurred to us. How important do you think that is, and at what point did you and your wife kind of get on the right track financially?
I have had to learn to be financially responsible. My wife came at it naturally. So it's interesting, I've written the books about it, but she's the real genuine authority. She's the one that lives this stuff naturally. Yeah, I think it's vitally important, but thankfully it's been something we've come at consistently over time rather than all at once or having had a conversion to it somewhere along the line.
Right. On a totally different topic, I've also really found that as I've talked to people and met people that have made a drastic change in their life successfully in the career realm, there tends to be a pretty consistent personality structure behind it. How would you describe your personality, and how did that play into your ability to transition from a very structured work environment to working for yourself?
Well, I've always thought of myself as being kind of a type A personality. I'm certainly not an expert on those things. And I don't know how objective any of us are about ourselves, but I don't have trouble finding things to do. I've never needed someone to tell me what to do every day in order to stay busy. My problem is kind of the opposite. Even without a job, even without a boss, I have trouble cramming into the day all of the things I would like to get done each day. And in the last 90 days, I have just been flat out every day. It's kind of a 16-hour-a-day work environment, and I find myself much more focused of late on trying to figure out how to untangle this mess that I've created for myself and take pressure off, because I am really kind of overwhelmed by it all right now. So I do think being an entrepreneur requires an element of that self-starterness. You have to be able to create your own to-do list rather than have one handed to you to be successful as an entrepreneur. You asked about relationships. I think in any business, relationships are key, and I'm not by any means an above average person by any measure, but I do have more than the average number of friends on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. I like to be connected to other people, and so I've managed that pretty well. So across all my platforms, I have far more than 10,000 connections. Of course, I don't know 10,000 people well by name, but I'm grateful to have a network that is kind of open and connected to a lot of people, and I get to meet interesting people like you all the time because I kind of have an open network that is always growing and expanding.
And what has been your greatest asset in transitioning to a successful business on your own, whether it was preparation or just a talent? What has really helped you succeed?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I come back again to my wife. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you this in their careers, that the number one most important asset is a supportive spouse. And you probably see that in your relationship with your husband. If he weren't supportive of you doing what you're doing, you'd be doing something else. And it's layered. It isn't just emotional support. It isn't just financial support. It's everything. It's having someone who says, hey, you did a good job. It's having someone who says, hey, I've got your back. It's having someone who will listen to you and give you advice. It's wonderful to have a smart wife who I can sit down and I can lay out a problem and she can provide a solution or good counsel. There's just so many levels on which that spouse is key. I don't mean to suggest that single people can't be entrepreneurs, but I do suggest it's harder. That support you get from a spouse is really invaluable.
So what has been your biggest surprise that you've run into? I mean, what did you not expect that you found along the way?
The biggest surprise is not one specific thing so much as in general how much harder it is than we think it is. Entrepreneurs are all optimists, and I've never met a successful entrepreneur who wasn't. And I explain it this way because I've worked almost my whole career has been with, alongside, or for entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are not glass half full people. They look at a glass that is approximately half full and they say, that sucker is 3/4, maybe 80% full. They just can't fathom the idea that it isn't almost a guaranteed shot, right? Everything is going to work, and it's crazy. We're wrong so much of the time. The data says we're wrong all the time. But if we weren't optimistic, if we weren't willing to try the crazy things, the world would be much worse off. Of course, every large business, whether it's General Motors, Forbes, whatever, all those large businesses, you can trace their roots back to when they were a little entrepreneurial business. Every business in the world came from an entrepreneur who said, we ought to try this. I think it would work, even though most of us are wrong. But thank heavens we're optimistic. So the biggest challenge, the biggest surprise is just how much harder it is than I thought it would be, even though I knew it would be hard. I had no idea.
So if you were to go back and do it all over again, the last 2.5 years or so, what would you do differently?
Golly. I can't think of one thing I would do differently. Yeah, it's just been such a wonderful journey. I look back on every memory, everything I've done over the last 18 months, and yeah, I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, but my heavens, I have had so much fun. I've enjoyed so much the experiences that it's hard for me to think of one thing that I would change. Maybe I would. Maybe I'd have had barbecue once or twice more than I did, but that's it.
So someone contemplating the same type of journey that you're on, what advice would you give them?
Oh golly, there is a host of people out there that will tell you just to chase your dream and do whatever. I would suggest, if you're thinking about doing this, that you take a moment to get real clarity and be real thoughtful about what it's going to take. A lot of the money I make comes from speaking engagements. Despite being an author, the book royalties don't pay very much. And as I was launching this career, I looked into speaking, and I was listening to one expert, and he said it really takes about 3 years to build a speaking career. And I thought, well, certainly I can do it faster than that. I think it will have taken, really 3 years by the time I get to that point of being able to make a living as a speaker. So I think it's important for someone who has entrepreneurial aspirations to seek out that real reality check, because we are such optimists as a rule that even presented with realistic data, we tend to ignore it. So I would encourage people to be very thoughtful about that. And the reason I say that is the impact on a family and a personal life on your finances can be so devastating when entrepreneurship doesn't work out. Where you've got to have the 360-degree review of the plan, and what are your financial assets, how are you going to buy groceries, understand all of those things. Where are you going to live, what happens if it doesn't work, what happens if it takes longer, what happens if it takes more money. You've got to figure all of those things out.
Great answer. Final question for you. I'm a huge reader. I have found that standing on the shoulders of the different people that have come before me and written about it has been so helpful. What would be your top 1 or 2 books that you would recommend to people on this course?
Wow. Boy, I'm like you. I love to read. The only 2 books I can think of that I have read more than once are Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I was turned off by that title because the book sounds like it is how to put on a show, how to pretend to be someone you're not. And in fact, when you read the book is 90% about how to become a better person, a person that people more want to be around, than it is how to pretend to be someone people want to be around. So its title is a little misleading, I think, because the book is so much richer and deeper than the title would suggest. And book 2 is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's another book I've read a couple of times in my career, and a lot of people look past it and they've got new ways, and of course there are a lot of different tools out there for time management that didn't exist when the book was written, but the fundamental principles of those 7 habits are as relevant today as when they were written 30 years ago, and so I would recommend that book as well. So those are 2 that I think have universal appeal to anyone in any field that we should all probably read and understand.
Great. I really appreciate you taking the time today, and this has been helpful for me, and I really think my readers will appreciate what you've shared, and so thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to be here. You're a delightful interviewer.